Is Joe Biden fighting inflation by popping weather balloons?
Wait, hold on. I have a
Yes.
That's what he's doing.
Yes. I'm going
That's
with
about
yes.
as far as he can go with it. So inflation is out of control, right? Isn't that great?
The best part is I don't think anyone actually knows how to keep it in check, because people that do know seem to believe what we did before was a terrible way of handling it. So raising rates was just a terrible way to handle it. Either way, I mean, look, people have been talking about this bubble for years. It's gonna pop. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
It's just how it pops and when.
I'm not the economist, but this sort of lends itself into this realm, and this is something I really wanted to ask about tonight because of us three here. Travis is kind of the guy that really knows. So take us back to Nixon. And what happened, the petrodollar,
Gold standard.
a lot of this stuff, because that has something to do with it too. It's part of the reason why we're having all of these wars for the petrodollar. But also, I mean, Nixon did a lot of stuff, man. There's a turning point. Like, so history goes like this, and you get to Nixon. You ask the average nobody about Nixon, and they'll go, "Oh, Watergate, whatever." No, like you go like this, and you get to Nixon, and then it just woo.
Yeah, there's a whole website dedicated to it, and I'd have to refresh myself on it. But what was it?
And while you look that up, I'll just do a little filler because that's my professional
Ayo.
thing kicking in. But again, petrodollar is huge, right? That's one of the big things going on. Why are we still in Syria? We just unfortunately, had some United States military members killed. There's attacks going on. We're still in Syria. We have... Look, the partnership is building up. Russia, China. We started getting Saudi Arabia to trade in U.S. dollars for oil. And that's what helped prop up the USD.
Cool.
Now, I'm going to sound like an idiot. I'll let Travis really run it, but just to wrap up what I'm saying, now you have, it worked for a long time, right? Before we were born. I mean, this was going on. The U.S. dollar was propped up because it was the petrodollar. Saudi Arabia did all the trading for oil in it. But now you had these other countries. They're getting in the game, too. They're offering up an alternative.
Yeah.
And that alternative will hurt the value of the U.S. dollar, which is already struggling with inflation, like you brought up. And so now we get into wars to help keep our dollar propped up.
The alternative currently is the... Shit, I forgot the name of it. They have a name now. Between
BRICs.
BRICs, yeah, between Russia, China, and Saudi Arabia. It's their version of a petrodollar, basically. And that will allow them to trade oil and goods between themselves because basically the West has shut them down.
Right.
Yeah, I've read that China was brokering a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. If that happens, they successfully do this, and that oil gets flowing from both locations around the world. We get cut out. The United States has basically been able to control this because of our military strength, because we're everywhere, because we had people geopolitically checkmated, and I think the world's kind of getting tired of that. And we clearly can't competently run the country anymore. So a lot of these state actors, the guys you were talking about earlier, in the CIA, in the State Department, people that are lifers that weren't elected, that have been there, have been running the scenes forever. I like to quote Eric Weinstein on that. He said that politics since the early 1970s, or really since the 1950s onward, has been professional wrestling, and that's it. No one actually does anything. You show up at the Capitol, no one's actually there. they're all campaigning to get reelected, but not doing anything. They're not making law. They're not solving problems.
I think that was the difference with Trump. I think that's why they hated him so much, because he didn't do everything, but he did more than what a normal president does. Because he went in and they were like, well, this is normally how it runs. All the intelligence agencies basically run everything. And he was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm actually going to do this.
So we can go back to Trump and how he lit the fuse on inflation, but there was a committee hearing about recently with Powell, the Fed chair, and Warren was fussing at him, basically like saying your option or your way to fight inflation is to lay people off. How do you answer for that type of stuff? And the whole time she's talking, I'm like, that's literally all he can do. His job is to manage the Fed fund rate, and that's all he can do. He cannot write legislation. He cannot stop government spending. He cannot do any of that. His job is to raise and lower rates based on economy being hot or cold. Yeah. That's it. Economy's too cold, you lower the rates so that people start borrowing money. Economy's too hot. Oh shit, we gotta raise those rates so that people chill the fuck out. We're going to reduce the amount of money in the system and allow the amount of goods to rise so that inflation levels out. So that's what it is, right? That's what inflation is. Too much money and too few goods. On a basic level, economy 101.
Money printers go brrrr.
Yeah, too much money chasing too few goods. So employment was incredibly low for many years, which is awesome for everybody, except now everybody can buy steak. So what happens to the price of steak?
And we're going to get back to Nixon, so keep it up. Don't lose
good.
it. But I remember during COVID when they were trying to pass this first stimulus, and my buddy, he's a dear buddy of mine.
How much was Trump's first stimulus?
I don't remember.
It was something like $4 trillion. I believe it was $4 trillion, and then Biden followed shortly after with another $2 trillion. Like as soon as he got into office, he was like, "Here's another $2 trillion in the system."
I just remember the argument with my coworker. My coworker is the kind of guy that thinks it's a good idea when there's a bipartisan legislation.
That just means they're fucking us hard.
Yeah, I know. Like, right?
They're not fucking us soft or from one side.
That's the uniparty stuff.
They're just
like,
DPing
well,
our
isn't it great when both parties can get along and agree with? I'm like, no, run away from that. That should be glaring. Number one, get away from that. If they agree on something, it's bad because that is the uniparty.
Like whenever they fully agree to bail out the Silicon Valley Bank, like over like a Zoom call. They all say, no, yeah, we're going to save them. It's fine.
I love in the Zoom call, they were trying to censor anybody that was going to talk about bank runs. They love censorship. But anyways, to wrap up this story with my coworker, he was like, he likes watching C-SPAN. So I'll give him credit for that. He bypasses the other ridiculous propaganda networks and just goes to C-SPAN. The problem with that is also he's got an unfiltered... Sometimes you got to have a filter. He's got an unfiltered look, and he really believes some of the shit that like Durbin is saying. Like he told me, he's like, I really liked what Durbin was saying. It really hit home with me, and I'm like, oh my god. When I was like, dude, you got to understand, you can't do this, okay? The conflict came with we're gonna give people money whether they keep their job or not. Whether they get laid off or not. I'm like, dude, you can't do that. They ain't going to go to work. They ain't going to go back to it. You can't keep doing that. They ain't going to go back to work. And he said, I've talked to my son, and, my son, he said, I gave my son this option. I told him, you can take the money and not go back to work, or you can take the money and keep working. What would you do? And he said, my son, he said, I'd take the money and I would keep working. I was like, Eric, I'm calling him out by name. Good job. You raised a good son. But guess what? Most of the people ain't going to do that shit. Most of the people ain't going to do that, man.
That's not fair. I believe that most people continue to work. I believe that there is a large number of people.
Well, look, we're arguing percentages.
But you do say, when you say most people, you're literally saying more than 50%.
I'll concede that point 100%.
And that's kind of crazy.
I'll concede that point. But there's a large amount of people.
There's a large number of people who are like, this is good enough.
fuck it, and they pack that money. And if they didn't waste it on stonks like I did, which Matterport, look, I'm gonna be.
Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it.
Just don't look at it.
Don't talk about it.
If you gotta, if you can afford,
don't talk about
no,
it.
if you can afford, toss a little bit more in it, and don't pay attention to it. And one day, dude,
This is your reminder that John is not a financial
I am
advisor.
not a financial
if
advisor.
he ever tells you, bro, check out this stock, just don't.
I'm drunk.
Check it out. Leave it there.
Just leave it there. Just be like, oh, that's
Just-
interesting, John. Really cool. Tell me how it goes, and then leave it there. No, I'm joking. It
I'll
was
give
my
you
fault
some-
for
I'll
getting
give
in
you,
so late.
I'll give you some of my earnings when it finally does hit. But anyways, that's not a.
Here, I gave you 50 cents, buddy. It's
So
fine.
I got to bring the circle around. So, anyways, that was the argument, and he was convinced that it was the right thing to do. I'm like, dude, you can't do this. And I remember walking up and down the hall with everybody I worked with, and I was like, bruh, we can't do this. I don't care if Trump's the president. Like, this is not a good idea. This is going to wreck the economy. Not for 1 year, not for 2 years, not for 3 years. You're looking at least a decade of just chaos. You can't just print money and just give it to people whether they're affected or not.
Here's the biggest thing.
You can't do that.
The biggest thing for me was how amazing the economy was for so long, right? The economy's amazing. Everything's going great. Everybody's fine.
Crushed it. Best numbers of our lives by
everything's
Jim
amazing,
Cramer. But, of course,
right?
everything he says do the opposite.
So we get into COVID,
Not a financial
and everybody
advisor,
freaks
nor is
out.
Jim Kramer. Don't take his financial advice.
No.
Everybody freaks out, and a lot of people lose their jobs, and I get that. But unemployment did not raise to some insane number, and not for long, right? It was only for, a couple months, and then things started to level out again. People started finding their jobs back. But the money kept coming.
It kept coming.
The money did not stop. Trump kicked the fucking door open with a vengeance. Said, fuck that. We're spending trillions now. Trillions. Many, many trillions. And Biden was like, yeah, what he said. And then just kept fucking going. And then like the next year after he passed his $2 trillion, he did an omnibus for $6 trillion. So it just kept fucking going. So now we're just...
How much of that do you put on Trump?
Kick the can.
So that was a bipartisan thing. That was one of those
Sure.
things where like, oh, the whole government said we have to do this.
Is that a Trump thing, or is that a Trump like, fuck it, I can't say no?
He doesn't get excused from it.
Yeah,
right?
I don't excuse
It's
him.
a continuation.
Because
just
he
like
could have literally
everything
said,
else.
no, we need to try better, or we need to find a better way to do this. But they wrote a blank check.
like healthcare, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm still waiting on that.
Yeah, they just couldn't come to a good, they didn't find their bipartisan
It's going to be
solution.
here next week, next
Yeah.
month. We'll have it. Nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, Trump could have said, this isn't good. I don't like the blank check. I don't like giving corporations a blank check to pay their people and use that money for what? Corporate buybacks, bonuses,
Look at
whatever
all
the fuck they
fraud
want.
Things they had too, man.
We're not just going to write a blank check to everybody. We're not just going to give everybody $1,500. We're going to actually look into, we're based on your tax returns. We're going to give you X to X, right? Or
I
X
never
to Y.
stopped working.
Anything.
I put all that money that the government's, and then I have kids, right?
And I understand.
You know where it went? It went into Matterport.
Shut up about Matterport, damn it! Fuck you.
And GameStop. And
But
GameStop.
I completely understand. I completely understand the mindset of a stimulus. The stimulus generally is the economy's so fucked that the government needs to push people to spend money.
Right.
So we're going to give you money to spend, and all through 2020, stock markets rose to insane numbers. Right.
I remember when Bush did it. Bush Jr.
Yeah.
had a
Big
stimulus.
stimulus check. Yeah.
And after a few months, all the news reports were like, well, it's not working as intended. Everybody's putting it in their savings.
It never works as intended.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, that's what most people do with a stimulus check is they put it into their fucking savings because most people still have jobs.
It's like,
Sure, it's
I'm
helpful.
going to keep working, but this is just my cushion now.
Again, and I will never say it's not helpful for people who need the help, right?
Right.
People need help. It's a fucking godsend to send them that money. But literally,
in the short term.
in the short
short
term,
term.
yes,
Next
of course.
year,
It ain't
If
coming
it doesn't
back.
come,
milk,
Yeah.
eggs,
exactly,
up.
and that's the
and
problem.
you're paying far more than that
Yeah.
stimulus.
Yeah.
So now
100%
everybody's buying
facts.
more eggs. Everybody's buying more milk. Everybody's buying steaks.
You get a run on
And
toilet paper.
you get a run on toilet paper. Jesus Christ! What a fucking shit show that was.
I'll never
Literally.
forget that. Never.
I got 3 toilets in this house. 2 of them have bidets on them.
How many times do you have to wipe your ass to go through all that fucking toilet paper? People with carts full of toilet paper at Costco.
Bruh,
Like, oh my God.
I just pat dry, bro.
1, 2, all
I got a
done.
hose out in the yard.
That's the Cajun bidet out there, boy.
That's right. I got jet.
I just
sprinkle.
shuffle outside with my pants around my ankles. I stick my ass under the faucet and
I
turn
got a
it full blast
magnolia
me.
tree. Those leaves take care of all
I
that.
scratch
boy.
my ass on the tree like a bear. Get it all off. So yeah, that's inflation for you, right?
Yeah.
It's a very complicated situation with the macroeconomics and the micro. There's a bunch of people who are probably screaming at the screen like it's not that simple, and I get it.
Well, you can break it. You can break it down to fractional reserve banking.
That's a big problem.
We get to make up money to give people on the bet that they're gonna generate more income, more money with that.
and with the Fed fund rate being less than 1% for so long, banks were making up money between each other for free.
the problem is
constantly
they started buying
loading
bad
money.
debt. They just started
Oh,
eating
yeah.
up bad banks, and that's what's still happening to this day. And then the people that are mismanaging funds and just tanking it. Of course, from what I understand, it wasn't. They had to take out more money.
Are we
than
talking about
anticipated.
Silicon Valley?
Yeah, yeah.
So Silicon Valley they invested heavily into treasury
bonds.
and
Pull when they needed.
did not ever think, oh, look, the rate's going up. Maybe we should sell these before we're in the hole. Never did they say.
And then they were forced to sell.
And then all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, we're done. So,
Yeah.
and in a normal market, with the regulations as they are, most of that money goes poof. It disappears. Oops, you put all your eggs in one basket. Turns out the basket just got run over by a fucking bulldozer. Sorry. Here's $250,000. Better luck next time. Right? You should have managed your money better.
Yep.
Silicon Valley Bank is done. All your money's gone. Oopsie daisy. But the government was like, nah.
Yeah.
Hey, pal, start the fucking press again. We're going to buy up everything for you guys and bail you all out. And the day that they get bought out, all the fucking upper management get bonuses.
Yeah.
So we got problems. Yeah, so I don't know. It's like all the checks are there, right? All the checks and balances are there. If you fuck up, you lose. Unless the government says, no, you're good.
Yeah.
Not this time. You don't lose this time. Maybe next time, though.
Well, there's a grand scheme at play that no one in particular is heading, and incompetence is taking the reins to it. Right?
Well, dude, they didn't even have a risk manager. Did you hear that? They didn't have a
No, she was busy. Okay.
Okay, we got some news. Hold on.
Pause here.
Okay.
I just want to let you guys know. Do y'all know where the bathroom is? Because this is going there. I just want to let y'all know at any time one can sneak out and go potty while we do whatever. I need some more of that crushed ice. I got some more Walcott to drink. If anybody needs to go down and get refreshments or whatever, I'm going to take the first one. I'm going to take the first break. You two go at it, and I'll be back. But no, they didn't have for like 8 or 9 months, they didn't have a risk
That's right.
management officer.
Yeah.
They didn't refill that position. The person left, but they did have I think, was it their old risk management officer? I don't know. I heard somebody went out. They were like overseas doing some kind of diverse equity.
I don't know the
inclusion,
specifics on that. No.
lesbian parade type stuff.
Hey, man, lesbian
Well,
parades are super
like,
cool.
I literally think like one of the things was like a lesbian parade thing.
They can-
I'm not trying to be derogatory or anything.
Yeah.
No, I think
Doesn't
that's
that
like
fall
one
under
of
the gay pride banner? Do they have their own?
But I think it was specific for that or
That's
whatever.
cool.
Anyways,
If you got,
I'm taking the first break, so y'all go.
All right, cool.
Man.
Yeah.
All right, so this is no longer the Lanyap show. What's our name? This is the two white boys complain about government show for about 10 minutes until John gets his shit together and gets his ice.
We can do that.
Okay. All right, so tell me about Nixon. What you got going on there?
So it was what he did when we came off the gold reserve. We made this bet as a country that instead of having direct military intervention where we would put boots on the ground, we would deliver aid, and we would always have, the nukes in the background.
Seems reasonable, doesn't it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, that way you don't actually have to ever have money. You just say we're gonna be your security, and we're just gonna print as much money as we want.
And you guys are going to buy our oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever else we say, right? I mean, that's essentially what it's boiled down to.
Also, don't buy this thing from China, okay, from now on. And they're all like, yes, a muscle.
And yet we do.
Yeah, well,
You
that's
know?
our job.
So you start globalization is basically what started there. The fun part, and I know John will probably want to hear about that when he gets back, but the fun part is, again, something Eric Weinstein had pointed out to me that really, he said, close your eyes. Let's do a thought experiment. Close your eyes. Look around your house. Turn off all the screens. Get rid of all the screens. How is the average home any different than it was in 1970? Because the only technological increase we've seen has been in screens, essentially. Air conditioning, refrigerators. Your life hasn't really changed other than the internet and screen related.
Yeah, there's not a lot of companies out there like, how do we get out of using Freon for AC? Like, nobody's thinking of advancing the technology in any way.
No. And quite the opposite. You have all of these appliances that used to last years longer than what they do now. In fact, they're made to fail earlier. And that's to generate more and more revenue. And
Right.
But, Eric's point was, from that point on, I mean, there's an entire website about it, right? We'll cover when John gets back. But, it's what the fuck happened in 1971 because the entire country shifted. Wages went stagnant. Profits and productivity went through the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists, which was a major problem, right? Scientists started working for corporations instead of doing research. Instead of actually doing science, they started developing products. That was a huge factor. And that's one that goes back to TikTok, right? You have some of the most brilliant minds in the field of psychology, right? That are working on technology to manipulate you, to buy into a product. You're not actually paying for it, but, continuously using it. They're gathering data on you and they're selling the data. But instead of trying to figure out, it's the classic science question, right? Should we do this? It's always, can we do it? But should we? And that, I think that goes to a larger issue, right? Taking philosophy out of higher education entirely.